Murder, She Watched contains adult themes and adult language. Listener discretion is advised. Murder, She Watched is for entertainment purposes only. Hi, couch detectives. Welcome to Murder, She Watched, the podcast where we solve murders from our couches. My name is Amye Archer. I am your host, and I'm here today with Matt Marr, one of my very good friends and from my favorite podcast, Reality Gaze. Welcome, Matt. Thanks for coming.
Hello, Sugar. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I realized as I was watching the end of this Matthew Shepard documentary that we're going to talk about today that I was, ugly crying. And then I was like, I did the same thing when I had Poodle here to talk about Andrea Gibson. So, I just invite you guys on to do really sad things. And I'm really sorry.
Yay!
Oh, yeah.
But important things. I think
It is important
to talk about.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about Matthew Shepard as a friend of mine. It's on TUBI for free if you guys want to watch it. I think it was 2013, 2014. I think it said it was released.
2014, 2015. You can also, because I don't want to watch commercials,
Mm-hmm.
I bought it on Apple. I rented it on Apple TV for like $4. You can rent it.
You can also go to the website and you can buy it and donate to their cause, which is really cool. It's like $20, but if you're feeling inclined, it's a good way to.
The Matthew Shepard Foundation.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Good to know. I'll actually probably will do that.
So I wanted to ask you, because part of the reason I asked you here is because you're my friend and I value your takes.
I'm a big homosexual.
You are a big homosexual, but you are also a Gen Xer who grew up in an area like Matthew Shepard lived in. And so you kind of get this culture that we all experienced. It's really interesting because I was asking my kids this morning, do you know who Matthew Shepard is? And they had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I was like, okay, pull up 2 stools. Here we go.
Here we go.
Before we go to work.
We're watching a fun movie with Mom.
Yeah, but I wanted to ask your experience with this because for me, we were the same age. He was born December 1st, 1976. I was born September of 77. For me, this has colored so much of how I protect and watch queer kids and the queer community. And so I just want to know, what is your experience with this horrific crime?
So I'd never seen the documentary before even when it came out. I remember because it was on Logo at the time. RIP Logo Network. But in watching this, I was reminded of just how I felt at the time, because I remember I was in school at North Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas, but it was still, Texas in the 90s. And to give people context that are younger, that maybe don't remember, Will and Grace didn't come on until I believe 1997 or 1998, I believe. Same, I think that year later, Showtime did Queer as Folk. The L Word hadn't dropped yet or anything. So only reason I bring those 2 things up is because those were the first time I ever saw and it wasn't in a pornographic way, but just 2 men having sex was on Queer as Folk. And I remember thinking I was gonna I thought the room was gonna erupt in fire that I was watching this.
Yeah.
And then Will and Grace, of course, we all know Will and Grace, but at the time it's the only representation we had.
Yeah.
I remember to just set the frame of where people are. This would be horribly looked down on now, but people Will and Grace came on and it was hit, and then people would stand around me and talk and say, is Matt a Will or a Jack, and just converse about who I am and my identity. And that felt so good at the time.
Yeah.
It felt
they were at least talking about it in a non-threatening way.
In a non-threatening and positive way.
Yeah.
So it was like a hug, because so what this brought back for me was a lot of, I came well, I was outed at a summer institute in Colorado. I was there for my college. It was
Mhm.
before the summer before my sophomore year. It was the summer of 1998. So I was
Oh, okay.
outed in the summer of 1998. Came back to school
Wow.
going, "What are people going to think of me?" Suddenly, everyone knows I'm gay, and then Matthew Shepard happened. So
Yeah.
what this brought back for me is remember being like, I was terrified. I was so scared, and I forgot about that. Just I think maybe my brain blocked it out, but
Mhm.
that's just the uh, I did like a journal after this just because it was so impactful for me to watch it. But that is kind of like I'll journal and then I'll kind of glance over and highlight words, that pop.
Yeah.
And it was just I highlighted it. It just said scared all over the entire page. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think and I know that when I came out, this is what my mother cried about and said, but what about Matthew Shepard and worried about me? And like
Yeah.
that took years of kind of letting my mother know I'm safe, but she
Mhm.
still, you know, she still, worries. I think, what this is really dark, but my mom says that when I came out, one of the things she thought about when I was like 5 years old, a man about a mile and a half from our home in Oklahoma, a man was found dead in a ravine, but for
Mhm.
the same way that Jake Gyllenhaal's character is killed in um,
Brokeback Mountain.
Brokeback Mountain. Thank you.
Mhm.
So, which was a very violent, the way the movie they
Mhm.
depicted that in the movie because that happened in real life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think just Matthew Shepard just reinforced that you just didn't know I kind of only felt safe going out like in Cedar Springs, but I would
Mhm.
never, ever, ever go home with someone and because I would be too scared to do it.
That just makes me so sad, but it is the reality that we grew up with.
Yeah.
My daughter, she has a very good friend who's trans, and I'm always saying to her, stay with her. Don't leave her in a bar alone. Like, you have to protect our
Mhm.
vulnerable populations.
Yeah.
And I always have Matthew Shepard in the back of my head when I'm saying this and doing this. And then I realized, Amy, you're kind of making Matthew Shepard just a cautionary tale, and I kind of hate that. So I was really grateful to watch this and get to know
Same.
who he was. You
Yeah,
know what
I
I
was
mean?
too.
And it really, like, if you guys want to watch something on Matthew Shepard, I highly recommend this because it really just shows us the person he was more than
Mhm.
the crime that happened to him,
Mhm.
if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Mhm.
And how about his parents? Oh my God.
I know. They're
Ugh.
they're,
That's when
and
I was sobbing at the end
yeah,
with the parents.
and even he wasn't in the documentary, but even now, I guess the brother works for the organization and does a lot with it. So
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so let's begin.
sure.
I have 7 pages of notes. I don't think I'll go through everything,
Okay,
but here we go.
here we go.
So this documentary is done by Michelle Husway. That's how she pronounces her name. She begins by telling us that Matt was the type of friend she thought she would have her entire life. But on October 12th, 1998, he was murdered and he became Matthew Shepard to the world. So I did like this distinction as well. Like, his friends and family call him Matt, and
Mhm.
we all called him Matthew Shepard. So I
Mhm.
thought that was interesting. This
Mm.
happened about a mile outside of Laramie, Wyoming. And, I don't want to get too into the graphic details, but he was
We
found.
Yeah, we kind of all know.
Yeah. And he was
Or we
beaten,
don't.
and it was so bad.
Mhm.
This ignites a media firestorm, and we see protesting. Oh my God, the Westboro Baptist Church.
Yeah,
I mean,
if yeah, if you yeah, they're,
there
um
has their power sort of been.
I think it's been deflated a little bit. I actually think
Thank
in
you.
social media has
Mhm.
been good for people to see kind of the atrocities. If you don't, they're highlighted. There's a beautiful moment there's also a wonder if you want to research more Matthew Shepard, there's a wonderful play called The Laramie
Mhm.
Project that was written based off of interviews with his family and friends.
Yep.
Really meaningful, but I think they even made a movie of it, didn't they?
I think so.
I
I'm
think
not
they did.
100% sure, but I
I
know
feel
the
like
play
Julia
is
Roberts was in it. Now I'm looking.
yeah, the play is still going on. Like the play is performed all the time across the country.
It is. I've seen it
Mhm.
performed with actually youth, and it was like really pretty fantastic. Yes, it was in 2002. So
Okay.
there is a Laramie project. Julia Roberts doesn't look like she's in it. I don't know where I said that.
Hey, why not?
Yeah, why not?
You know what? I would cast her as Judy Shepard.
In a second.
So we see these assholes showing up with their fucking signs, and I want to take them and just jam them up their asses and send them home. I hate them so much. I hate them so
They're pretty.
much.
If you pretty, yeah. And what happened with it was already happening, but it came to light that these people were going to highlighted. They still, I think, some of them go highlighted people that die when they're gay, and then talk about how they're going to hell. And
Yeah.
I just walked by. It wasn't Westboro, but some of them. I just went to Pride, and so here in WeHo, and there was always some of them there. So
It's gross. President Clinton, that was a blast from the past, hopes that Americans can search their hearts and reduce their own fear, anxiety, and anger. Remember when presidents tried to calm us down, Matt?
Yeah.
That was a time.
That was a time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Matthew and Michelle met and formed a friendship in Casper. That's where Matt is from. And she's making this film so the world can know the real Matt. So Matt, we meet his mother, Judy, and she's telling us, and I know you have a brother and I have a sister, how different the siblings were, even though they came out of the same place. And I face this even with my twins. They're completely different, but they're identical twins. So like I appreciated her kind of fleshing out the family and talking about Logan, his brother.
My brother is very different than me.
Yeah, and his father tells this hilarious story about him tickling Matt in a public place, and like Matt screaming, "Help me, this stranger's attacking me, help me."
She was dramatic.
I thought that was really great. And Judy says when he was a little kid, he would write poetry for the neighbors.
That is just
why can't I get a neighbor writing me poetry?
I know. I love you. If your son is writing poetry, that's a little poodle.
That's a little poodle. That's also a little Amy Archer.
It's a little Amy Archer. Yes, it's true. This is true.
So she says when Matthew was 8, she began to wonder if he was gay because his favorite Halloween costume was Dolly Parton, and he wore that thing all the time. Halloween, all the time.
Yes, I liked it when the mom differentiated that.
And one thing she says that was interesting is she said, and I wanted your opinion on this. She says she believes that people who are queer, their loved ones usually instinctively know from a pretty young age. Like, do you think that was your experience? Do you think that your mother kind of knew?
Yes, I agree with that. I think what happens is, especially with the bond of a mother and I don't know why, but I think because, not to say that all going off of stereotypical gender roles, which a lot of, I don't try to in my life, and I know we're trying, but a lot of people do. I think there is that, particularly mothers are able to see it in boys because mothers are able to recognize softness.
Oh, that's true.
And so they see that in boys. And I think the same goes for, a lot of times you'll hear about mothers don't sometimes know with their daughters that and where fathers
pick it up
because that fathers will say it felt like her energy felt more. And I'm not saying that's all queer people, LGBT, legitimate queer people, but that definitely I think was my experience. I mean, my dad, I was playing with Wonder Woman, like, as my sister cousin Kelly said, I know Jesus made you gay because you took off the clothes of the G.I. Joes and said they looked more handsome. So you were 2. So
I love that. I kind of love that.
So, but I also, yes, it definitely, I think, yes, I think, and from a little bit of psychology perspective, I do think parents often know what happens is, but I think a lot of times we always know the truth. We always know the truth in our bones, but it's how close are we to the things that the interceptors that tell us what we want to hear when the truth is scary. And so when the truth is scary, then often that's what leads to fear and all those kind of things. So, and even in if you look at it in a political system. So I think that, there's just, we tell ourselves, but we know.
Yeah. Yeah. So his guidance counselor, okay. The guidance counselor is real involved in Matthew's life here.
Yeah, very much so.
And I was kind of just looking at through 2026 lens. I was like, this is kind of weird for me, but I think that's just my own lens. This guy seems to be fine. Everybody loves him that is around Matthew. So like, I think he's a good support system for him.
I mean, I think, now we like to have more distance. I think, it's when this man was gay, this guidance counselor. So it would be, it just, I mean, you got to, y'all, where they are, there's no one, there's nothing. So
yeah, he was the one person. Well, what kind of, I'll be honest, what kind of bothered me a little bit is he said, I was the first person Matt came out to because I asked him if he was gay. And I was like, okay, so he wasn't ready to tell you. Do you know what I mean? Like that bothered me
possibly,
a little bit, but
we don't, we don't know the conversation. He might have been like, talking all around it and saying the words. And I think that's different.
Yeah, you're right. But then in 1993, when Matt is just finishing 10th grade, they moved to Saudi Arabia. And I was kind of like, holy shit, that feels like on so many levels, like just dangerous in terms of his social support network. Because 10th grade, you're going into 11th grade. That's a tough time to leave.
It is a tough time.
Your friends.
But I think it made me feel better that they were going to a boarding school somewhere else.
Yes. So they go to this boarding school in Switzerland, and it actually has the opposite effect. Like it opens his circle. It opens his world. They travel abroad. They go all through Europe. He's got like these 3 friends that he's buddy with, and they go everywhere. And it really, his mother's like, it really expanded his worldview. And he got to see that, Casper, Wyoming, the world is bigger than that. And I think that was wonderful for him. So it ended up good. But at first I was like, what are you doing?
Well, it made me wonder. Actually, it reframed what I thought about the poster boy, Matthew Shepard, because I always thought, okay, he was like a young country kid like me, didn't really get out. I just assumed his world was more small town.
I did too.
And in seeing this, because ironically enough, the summer before my sophomore year of high school, my mom's, we called her sister, her best friend, her and her husband and their 2 boys, they worked for Halliburton, and they were sent to Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
And so the same type of thing. And they were sent to, and they were going to go to school, and they had this like boarding school. Then like 3 months in, they got laid off and they had to move back. And they ended up moving in with us because my dad told my mom he was cheating on her, and they divorced. And that's a Southern story. And that's not what this show's about.
You can find that on Reality Gaze.
You can find that on Reality Gaze. But I remember then thinking, and the child in me thought is, oh my God, how lucky you got out.
Yeah.
Because I knew I wanted to get out. If my parents moved to Abu Dhabi, I would be like, especially what little I knew, I'd be like, let's go. Let's do this. And so again, it like, it actually made the film, his story, more heartbreaking to me. And that, there was actually so much support around him, and so much support if he had come out earlier.
Yeah.
And nobody would have cared, and he would have had a very different life.
Yeah. And it's interesting because throughout this, his friends keep saying like he wanted to go into politics. He wanted to change policy. Like this kid wanted to change things. And I love when at the end they're talking about his mother, and his instructor, I think it is from the boarding school, said like, Matthew's mother is living out what Matthew wanted to do.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's the best homage you can pay to your children. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the guidance counselor has this really interesting conversation with Michelle, and she says, it's really sad that he never came out to me. He never felt like he could come out to me. And the guidance counselor says, the closer you are, the harder it is to tell someone, because those are more high stakes. You're afraid you're going to lose those people. And like, I never thought of it that way, but that makes total sense.
Oh, for sure. It's and again, to go the context, this is in like 1995, 94. So the only thing we know, y'all, that was we're talking about don't ask, don't tell in our country then. And so all I'm hearing, and probably Matthew Shepard is hearing, is I don't want fags in our military. That's all I was hearing, even from my own father. So we're hearing that, and we know of Ryan White and AIDS, and that gay people die from AIDS, but Ryan White, even though he was straight, a kid, and it was a blood transfusion, it made it. If you were a kid, it just brought it into your life. I feel like kids had to learn about AIDS at maybe too young of an age.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying all this for people like, why couldn't he have done that? Like, you've got to remember, this is almost 40 years ago. And this is the mindset that no one is only talking about this unless it's a death sentence or you're going to hell.
That's the thing. Like, I want to first acknowledge that we have so far still to come in this country, but we have also come so far, right? Like, we still have a long way to go. People are not safe. But when you look at like Barack Obama was the first president and had to be urged to say, yeah, okay, I'm all right with gay marriage. Like, Barack Obama, that's only like, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So like, it's certainly, when you watch something like this and think about that, we have come a long way. Like, I see my kids and they have friends all over the spectrum. They're on the spectrum, like it's a much more inclusive world that we're in. But, I just want to be clear that we still have a lot of work to do, and hopefully we can do that.
Yes. Even like my little hometown, the library just got in trouble because, this is going to make you so hard, Amye Archer. You're going to love it. You're going to love this story.
Okay.
Because Ardmore, Oklahoma Public Library set up a pride kiosk and people freaked out. And they're like, nope, that's not what we do here at the library. And they kept it up, and they still are keeping it up.
Wow. Good for them.
That never would have happened when I was a high schooler. So that to me is like, that is a marker of, even in the smaller towns, the progress is slower. It is in some ways getting better. Yeah.
So one of the turning points in Matthew Shepard's life was when he and his friends were in Morocco, and he decided to go out one night by himself, and he ended up being robbed and raped by 6 men who had pulled him into an alley. And his friends talk about this, and they were like, they still choke up thinking about it, right? Of course, as you would. But they're like, we really think that he was sort of feeling free to live who he was in that moment, because you're anonymous in Morocco. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody's going to go to the local store and tell your mother they saw you with another guy. You know what I mean? Like, it's a freedom, and he was exercising that freedom as a young person should. And this horrific thing happened to him. And everyone in his inner circle says, this changed him completely. Like, the light went out. You know what I mean? He was dimmed because of this. So that was really sad. And I had no idea that happened.
I didn't either. And I didn't know that. And again, y'all, there was no Grindr. There wasn't even like, maybe there were Yahoo chat rooms. Yeah. But that is, people cruising. There's an old film called Cruising, but that is, I think now it's kind of looked down as either shameful or dirty, but like gay sex spas, before they were the community was inundated by meth, like in the 60s and 70s, like Poodle and I as friends would have just gone to a gay sex spa together, and he would have done his thing and I would have done mine. But then also that's where you meet everybody, or cruising in alleys or in gay neighborhoods. I think it's had a lot of this lewd and shameful, dark energy put on it. And rightly so, there's been, again, like what happened to him in Morocco. But there's also, that was kind of the only way
Mhm.
When a government doesn't talk about you, when a people don't talk about you, unless it's in a negative, hateful way, your culture has to go underground to find a safe
Yes.
space, so to speak.
Which makes it more dangerous for everybody involved in that culture. It
Exactly.
drives me crazy because I cover so many polygamy shows on Sister Wives or on Little Miss Recap, like Sister Wives, and they're always talking about how we need to make polygamy legal so it's not subversive, so people aren't in danger and people can conform. Yet they're going in a voting booth and voting against the interests of other vulnerable communities. It's like, what are
Yes.
you not
Yep.
connecting here?
Yeah, you don't get it.
Oh yeah. So when he was a freshman in college, he started in North Carolina at college. That's when he came out to his parents, and by all accounts, Judy says, what took you so long? Like she was fine with it, and she did do what I always do with my children and my husband. She prepped Dennis so that he would have the right answer, which is something I always do with my husband. If my kids tell me something, I'm like, okay, they're going to tell you this, and here's how just make sure
I
you.
I agree with this stance. Even if your child says, "Please don't tell anyone," like I didn't tell my dad. My parents were divorced at the time, so it was easy. Um, and but I I think that if like, let's say someone comes out to their dad and they say, "Don't tell mom," but the father knows that mom's not going to give a shit.
Right.
I think you should. I think, yeah.
For me, Matt, it's a protective factor for the kid.
To me,
Right?
that's where parenting comes in. So to
Yes.
me, I
Yes.
would rather, as a gay person, I remember one time I used to, when I used to do groups at the, like, youth groups at the Gay and Lesbian Center at the youth center. And so we did a group, and there was just kids from all over, like kids with two parents, kids that were currently in the foster care system, kids, there was just a lot. And I will never forget one kid who was a foster care kid, and he was originally, his parents were from Guatemala, and so his birth parents. But because what foster care systems were doing is they were putting him in primarily Latino, Central American families that lived in LA, thinking that would be best for him. But he was gay, and it was It like had horrible. So he had a lot of trauma with it. So finally, at 8, he got adopted by a different family. It was actually doesn't really matter, but it was an Asian woman and a white man he was adopted by, that were a married couple. And he came out to his mom and said, "Don't tell dad, don't tell dad." And she immediately went to the dad and said, "Hey, by the way, blah, 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 I just came out." And he said his dad came in, like, kind of like, "What took you so long?" And a lot of people fight, like a mother or father would fight over that, of going against their child. But it might be 3 more months of your child in agony, wondering if their father is going to disown them. So take that away from you. That's what you're protecting your kid from.
And you never know, like sometimes, I'm very close with a lot of my friends who've had children transition. And I've seen it done really well, and I've seen it done pretty poorly, right? And sometimes that pretty poorly is just an instinct. It's program, whatever's programmed into us by society.
Yeah, like my mother said at the time, "When are you going to have children?" But what you were going to be such a good father.
Right.
Cut to 10 years later, she's saying, "Where's my baby?"
Right. So. Yeah. Well, and it took, the family I'm thinking of in particular, it took them like a little bit to get the language right, and they had good intentions. They wanted to do this. They wanted to support their kid through it, but like they stumbled. So in a case like that, where you're like, oh, this other parent is a little old school, I'm afraid of what they're going to say, you don't want to cause your kid more harm. So you want to like prepare them so they can have, the good answer and a minute to think about it. So that's how I was looking at it. Yeah. So he's really struggling now with school, and he's just trying to find his place, and he really can't. So he goes through periods of depression. At one point, he moves to Denver. He seeks out a church. And he was trying to talk to somebody about finding God, but he encounters a woman who's trash and calls him evil.
Basically, yeah. Yeah.
So the guidance counselor's like,
and also, again, back then, there was they were kind of like, I knew that as raised Catholic, I knew Episcopalians were pretty progressive, but still, it was back then. It wasn't, you know,
It's not like it is today. Like,
no.
I could go down the street and find a church that would accept me if I was queer here in Northeast Pennsylvania, which is shocking.
Yes, that might even have a rainbow flag outside the
Yes.
church for
Yep.
pride. Yeah.
Yep. So this guidance counselor, you can tell he still feels guilty about this because he's like,
Yeah.
I'm the one who convinced him to come back to the University of Wyoming to go to Laramie. Like, it was me. But I thought this would be safe for him. I thought he would have his friends around.
Which turns out actually it was. It kind of brought him back to life. So it was the right thing for him to do. So I hope the guy let go of that guilt, because
I think he did, because this dude tells us like a few weeks before Matthew was murdered that he had told this guidance counselor, like, I finally feel safe again.
Yes.
And he was involved in some LGBTQ groups on campus. Like, he was finding his way.
Yeah.
And that was good.
Because again, you said it, the mom, but what they talked about earlier is that he was always super interested in politics and policy and wanted to do something in that, which is the irony of that is so heartbreaking.
I know, because he did do it, but like in death, unfortunately. So October 12th, 1998, there was a meeting on campus of one of these LGBTQ groups. And afterwards, Matthew didn't want to go back home. He wanted to go out, have a drink, but no one else wanted to go. So he went alone to this bar called the Fireside. The bartender says it wasn't unusual for him to come in, have a drink or two by himself and go. But on this night, around 11 o'clock, these two guys come in, Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson, and they order a pitcher of beer and they pay for it in dimes and nickels. What is that?
I'm going to ask my friend as a bartender, do people do that, pay for things? And I guess that's broke. That's too broke.
That's broke.
People.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it's funny because they interviewed the police and they say Russell was kind of quiet. He was more a follower, but Aaron was a repeat customer. So like these guys, neither one of them are good, but it sounds like one is kind of worse than the other one.
Aaron sounds like a real.
Oh, yeah. Their story was that they noticed Matt had money. Oh, sure. Because, college students just walking around with a ton of money hanging out of their pockets.
But to them, if they're that broke,
Jesus. So they were going to pretend they were going to pretend they were gay and they were going to rob him. And the bartender does remember seeing them leave together. And he's like, I did kind of think it was weird. But so the guidance counselor says that was my birthday. And Matt and I were supposed to go out, but he knew my birthday didn't mean anything to me. Okay, so that guy's clearly not a Libra. I'm just going to say that. And he called me up and he canceled. And the guidance counselor was like, I should have insisted that he keep the plans. Like he would have been alive. All right. A lot of that. This gets really dark. You know what they do. And Matthew was 21 at the time that this happened. And he was this is another thing. I didn't realize that he had lived for a few days. Well, that his body had lived.
I knew that because I'd seen the Laramie Project.
Yeah.
I knew that he was in a coma.
So Robert Dubry, the cop, says that these guys drove 70 yards out of their way to find this fence. Like this was not some just impulse thing.
No.
They put effort into this.
Yeah, they really did.
The first responder describes just comforting Matthew when she came upon him and trying to keep him alive. And she says there were tear stains on his face. He was out there for 18 hours.
Yeah.
18 hours.
And at night got cold. I'm sure it's like autumn.
Yeah. It's October.
Yeah.
We hear the parents getting the calls. This is, I've covered a lot of murder documentaries, and this is always my least favorite, hardest part is when the parents relive getting the news that their children have been attacked or were dead. But they were in Saudi Arabia, so they had to fly home. Could you imagine that flight? Jesus.
No, and taking so long and just wondering. Yeah. Oh, horrible.
They get to the hospital. They describe seeing him. They said it didn't even look like him. The police at first are saying that this was a robbery, that was the primary motive. And I have to hand it to the guidance counselor. Let me get his name again. Walt Bolden, because he's like, I'm going to call all these national papers and I'm going to make sure that Laramie, Wyoming doesn't just,
gloss
over this. And that was so smart because it worked.
So smart. It worked. Yeah.
So now that we're kind of talking about like, will this be treated as a hate crime? And, the queer community is like, absolutely, this was a hate crime. And Laramie is still kind of like, it was a robbery.
No,
And
yeah, that was a big thing. And they show clips of it. And again, I know a lot of people don't like her now, but you have to remember, like, Ellen DeGeneres was the poster child for queer people at the time.
Yes.
I don't even think Rosie O'Donnell was technically out yet.
Yeah.
But I remember I really remember Ellen DeGeneres just talking all the time about Matthew Shepard and really pushing, changing the public's perception of what a hate crime is. To give her credit, to give her flowers for that, Ellen DeGeneres did do that.
Yeah, Ellen, complicated historical figure, but did a lot for the queer community. Absolutely.
She really did.
Yes,
she really did.
Absolutely.
You cannot argue she was a trailblazer.
Yes. So they eventually get Aaron to confess. He tells them everything. At one point, the doctor from the hospital tells us, like, we knew that Matt wouldn't survive. We knew that his body might bring him, through a couple days, but like he was going to be in a vegetative state. And now Dennis and Judy might have to make the decision whether or not to take him off of life support. They end up not having to do that. He does pass on his own, but the cops are kind of like, we're in this weird place where like he is a piece of evidence.
He's a piece of evidence. And if he dies, that changes the nature of the trial.
And that did. He died, and they charged the boys with the men, with first degree murder, which yay.
Yeah.
Dennis drives like a maniac back to Casper at some point to try to find Oscar.
Oh God, Oscar!
Oh, where was Oscar? I wanted Matthew to have Oscar with him when he passed.
But I think he was Oscar, y'all, is this little rabbit. If you didn't watch it, this little stuffed animal he had since as a kid. That was his security blanket. But then I think they probably would have buried him with Oscar.
Yeah.
And the dad says, I recognize that I needed something to remember the good things about Matt with.
Yeah, that was really sweet. That was
very, very sweet.
Queer activists are hoping that this could be the case to bring their plight into the limelight, to show the country like this has been happening. This has been happening to us. We need you to see it. So you said, we see the rally, we see Ellen is there,
which is great. But I'm glad that they talked about this, and because I always think about this. The parents can't even process their grief. They can't even process any of this without just immense public pressure. I love the part of the interview where the mom talked about the dad's giving the press conference, and the mom is crying. She puts her head on his shoulder and is crying. And that's when she notices all the shutters are going off. And she says, oh, they just want to see our pain.
Yeah.
Which that's sadly, people change. Yeah, you can say people are good, inherently good and all. And I do think that. I think it's a little different. But I will say from a therapeutic model, I've noticed people don't change until they have to.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I really believe that.
I believe
myself
that too.
Included. Like I'm not going to eat better until my doctor says, what the fuck are you eating? You have high cholesterol.
I'm not going to eat better until I'm getting that stent in my heart.
And then I'm like, there's a lot of people. That is just how people are. So yeah, that's just anyway, that was heartbreaking. Yeah. He
was one of 33 queer kids killed that year. There are fucking protesters at this funeral, and I just wrote, I hate people. I really do. This is the worst of humanity when these kids come out.
There's this beautiful thing though where they do it in the Laramie Project, and it's the part that really like
Getcha.
And you see a little bit of the people that are dressed as angel with the huge wings
surrounding
what
them.
A lot. I get goosebumps now just talking about it. All these people came, these angels just surrounded this hate group and they had these things with the curtain, so it blocked out the side of them and helped block out the noise. And it's it's a beautiful, beautiful part of the show.
That is beautiful. I'm glad that Judy and Dennis had that there, because I couldn't even imagine this.
No.
Judy, so even the hospital gets hate mail. Like, what?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Russell Henderson, 22 at the time. He pleads guilty. He's serving life in prison. Good. Goodbye. Andrew McKinney was 23. He's being charged with first-degree murder, and they're seeking the death penalty. At some point, we get this scene. I didn't love it, but I understand why Michelle included it. Aaron wanted to see a priest, so we hear from this priest, and this priest kind of says to her, because she's like, do you feel like he was sorry, Aaron? And the priest says, well, if Matthew was our child, we have to accept that Aaron and Russell are God's children too. And Michelle starts crying. And the priest is like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. And she's like, it just makes me so angry that you're putting them on equal ground.
I actually loved it that they put it in there, because this goes a little bit of love the sinner, hate the sin type of bullshit. Because the
I liked how
totally
it came out. I just didn't love what he was saying. I agreed with Michelle.
Yeah, I agreed with Michelle too.
Yeah. No, I'm glad it was in there, because we got to see her push back a little bit against that narrative, and then he did explain where he was coming from with that. He says the judge does not let them use what they're calling the gay panic defense.
Do you remember this? I do.
Yes. Aaron said that
big thing.
Yep. Aaron said that Matthew made a pass at him, and that is why Matt just lost his mind and flipped out and drove 2 miles off road and murdered him.
This sounds wild. And this is what was used for decades to get men off the hook. Particularly, I say men, it happens with women, but it's mainly about, queer culture is so much about the hatred of the feminine and turning away from masculinity, and just the hatred of women in our society. But that's a whole other, but this people would say this in court. I had gay panic, and they would go, "Oh, well, that makes sense.
You're good." Wild.
It's
McKinney says at his trial, there won't be a day that goes by that he won't be ashamed of what he did. And Matt's father talks about Matt, and this must be in the victim impact statement during the sentencing phase.
Impact statement, yeah.
And he says he was a gentle, caring soul who was as tough as anyone I've ever known. But I wanted to bring this up with you, Matt Marr, specifically, because did you know Matthew Shepard wore braces for 8 years?
I'm on the other end of it now.
Would you like to respond to this?
So it honestly was just another thing of this kid. This really could have been me. Like, it was so, the way the friends talked about him, he was the theater kid. He was the artsy kid. I was interested in politics at the time until I realized that politics is a business and I hate them.
Same.
But I was this kid. I was so much like this kid.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up the theater stuff, because I did forget to mention it, that Matthew was in theater and stuff. And I am the biggest advocate for arts in our schools. And this is why, I talk all the time about how the poetry club saved me. And we need arts in the schools because it is a place where vulnerable kids can find healing and can find friendship and can find acceptance. And
agreed.
It's so important to keep those arts funded.
And that's all I wanted, was to be in plays, but we didn't have the budget to do that at my poor school. I had speech and debate, which was wonderful at the time, but you just saw he had all these opportunities. And honestly, there was a lot of me that was like, oh, Matthew Shepard lived the life that I wanted.
Yeah. I have to talk about, we're wrapping up here, but I have to talk about this part with his father. His father talks about how he had to reconcile with the fact that Matthew was out there for 18 hours and how that's really where he died. And he says, oh God, it gives me chills. He said he died with his friends, the night sky, the stars, the moon, the sunlight. He heard the Wyoming wind, and he had God.
Because Matthew loved the outdoors. He loved the skies. And he was happy to be back in the land.
Yes. And then he says, Mr. McKinney, he addresses Aaron McKinney, I'm going to grant you life in memory of Matthew, and may you live a long life, and may you thank Matthew every day for it. So his parents intervened and fought for a plea deal.
I remember this.
Aaron would get life instead of death. And they did that for Matthew. They believed that that was honoring Matthew, that that's what he would want, that they
Mm-hmm.
just didn't want more death, if that makes sense.
Yes. And I thought that was such
Unbelievable.
a beautiful juxtaposition with one thing I did love about the priest. I was shocked when the priest, when he was talking to her
Mhm.
and basically said kind of at the end, he's like, I don't want you to get over it. You should stay angry about this.
Lean into the anger, he
Lean
said.
into
Yeah.
the anger. And
Mhm.
that to me was such a pivotal moment and something I didn't expect from him.
Yeah, and I talk a lot about like I don't understand a lot of religion. I grew up Roman Catholic, but I'm an atheist now, and I don't understand a lot of it. But when it's in action and you see it like this, you know what I mean? Being benevolent
Mhm.
and being generous and kind
Mhm.
and consoling people. I'm like, okay, this is the good that religion can do. I get that
Mhm.
sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I've no doubt that Judy and Dennis, this was coming from that place.
Yeah.
So Dennis says, his goal was to change the world, and this isn't the way I wanted it to happen, but it did happen. And that's how we end. We end with some more home footage of Matt. We do get a scene of Obama signing the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. hate crime bill, which I have
Mhm.
a little bit of information on because I wanted to look it up.
Okay.
All right. And another thing I wanted to look up is I was seeing them arresting the girlfriends, and I was like, what is going on here? So they did arrest the girlfriends. Their name was Kristen Price and Chastity Paisley. And they
Chastity
I was
Paisley is the
waiting for
most
it.
Chastity Paisley. Did you hear she got arrested? Yep, for cover.
Oh.
Well, because they were trying to take cover. I forget the term, but cover it
They
up.
were accessories after the fact
Thank
because
you.
they were trying to not alibi these guys, but they were trying to help them with this lie that the
Yeah.
gay panic defense. So they were arrested. They had lesser charges. They were pretty much let go. But December 1998, Paisley pleads guilty to being an accessory, and I don't even know if she served jail time. And then Henderson avoided going to trial when he pleaded guilty to murder and kidnapping. And in order to avoid the death penalty, he agreed to testify against McKinney and was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms. So they're both in jail, rotting in jail where they belong.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel good about that.
Same.
Okay. So James Byrd Jr., I did not know about this. And I feel terrible that I didn't know about this. But this hate crime happened only 2 months before Matthew Shepard, maybe 3, June 1998. So same year. He was an African American man who was murdered by 3 men, 2 of whom were white supremacists in Jasper, Texas. 1998. It was Sean Berry, Lawrence Brewer, and John King. They dragged him for 3 miles behind a Ford pickup truck along a dirt road. So that's who the bill is named for. It's the
I
Matthew
remember this
Shepard and James Byrd. Yeah, were you living in
because
Texas at
I
the
was
time?
living in Texas, so
Okay.
it was because at first they thought it was a racial thing.
Mhm.
Or, and then they were trying to say it wasn't a racial thing, that
Mhm.
it was like,
Mhm. It
but
was a racial thing.
because y'all hate crimes don't just apply to gay people. That's
Yes.
what they're trying to prove is that it's an overall.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I remember this.
So what's interesting is you can go and read basically as most laws in this country work. We had 3 presidents who tried to get this passed. And George W. Bush was somebody who was like, no. And then Barack Obama finally passed it. And do you know how he passed it? Nancy Pelosi snuck it in with defense funding.
Ah,
And that's how it got passed. So the law was passed on October 22nd, 2009. And the measure expands the 1968 federal hate crime law to include crimes motivated by a victim's actual or perceived gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability.
mm-hmm.
And then I didn't know this, but in 2024, President Biden awarded Judy Shepard the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
I did know this.
Mm-hmm.
I did because I watched it and I cried a little bit. It's very
yeah.
sweet.
So there we go. That's how it ended, and what a story.
Yeah, true. I mean, again, I recommend for people to watch this just to put some humanity to this face that we know, and
Yeah.
I feel like I'm gonna it's like with my father dying, like I realize now in grief that the relationship doesn't end. In
Mhm.
some ways, I feel closer to my father,
Mhm.
and um, even with Matthew Shepard, I didn't know him personally, but after watching this documentary, I feel like I'm going to think of him more. I feel like it's almost like I have a type of relationship with him now, and what
Yes.
he did for me.
And when I think of him now, I will think of him as that 5'3", 110-pound
Yeah,
kid
little
wearing
pocket,
braces.
like they call him a pocket gay. He was a little
Yes,
pocket gay.
yes. Like,
Yeah,
I'll think of him like that rather than what happened to him,
yeah,
if that makes sense. And
hmm
I think that's what the documentary set out to accomplish, and I
yeah.
think she did. I think it was
She did.
brilliant. And I also want to encourage everybody, the Matthew Shepard Foundation does a lot of work around educating police departments and other groups about hate crimes.
Hmm
So if you want to support them, I'll throw the link in the show notes, and I'll be making a donation on behalf of Murder She Watched and all of our listeners. So I encourage you guys to check that out. All right.
Can I say something real quick before we
Yes, you
end?
can, of
Just because I
course.
think it's important. I realized I'm wearing it today. I
Ooh,
talked about this on Gaily Dose, but this is a shirt that says resist staying the same. And it's got little like that. I don't know if your people have video, but the whole point of this shirt is it's from a company called East Coast Tags.
I've
And
heard you talking about
and I
them.
just want to, I thought about this in this documentary for people that are listening that are on the queer spectrum that don't
Mm-hmm.
feel safe. This
Mm-hmm.
company, East Coast Tags, they make quote pride merch, but they don't do it with rainbows or anything. So it just looks like a shirt.
I
But for
love that.
somebody in the community and family, you feel like you're either supporting, it's queer owned. Anyway, I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to, because I'm thinking of like, what do we, just something for people out there that are listening to this that are in fucking
Yeah.
Indianapolis or
Yeah.
someplace or some, that
I
feel alone.
also, I also donate a lot to the Trevor Project. It's just a cause that's near and dear to my heart.
Mhm.
And, don't forget those resources are out there. The Trevor Project supports, queer kids, queer allies, everybody. And
Yeah, I volunteered
that's
for them for about 5 years.
yeah, and it's saved many lives. So that's another great organization if you're looking to put your money somewhere, that I would highly recommend.
Yeah, because it's promoted as a suicide helpline, but I took calls. That's what I did as a
Yeah.
volunteer.
Yeah.
Um, yes, some of them were that, but most of them were just, and it reminded me of Matthew Shepard actually. I remember I took a call. I know we got to go, but I
No, no,
remember I
you're
took
fine.
a call and I was talking to this guy, and he's telling me about his experience, and just the theme was how alone he felt. And I knew he
Mhm.
lived in a city, and I hadn't asked because he seemed really private, but he just felt so alone. No one knew he was gay. He was Black. He was an athlete.
Mm,
Um, and this was like in 2006,
yeah.
and then he said at the end of the call, I said, by the way, where do you live? Maybe I can find some resources from you. And he said, oh, I live in Chicago. And I went, I'd be sucking some dick if I lived in
Right.
Chicago. Like, are you
Right.
fucking kidding me? Like,
Right.
have you been to Boys Town? Like, and of
Mhm.
course I didn't say that on the call, but what I
Mhm.
realized, and it's the same thing from Matthew Shepard, that we can have people around us and still feel desperately alone.
Yeah.
And that's the importance of checking in with the people that are in our lives, and sometimes asking questions you're scared to ask because maybe they're scared to talk about it.
Absolutely. I love that. And also, you can live in a progressive place and still be a member of communities where being queer is not looked upon as it
Mhm.
should be, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
athletics is one of those places.
Yeah. Mhm.
Absolutely. All right, Matt Marr, thank you so much. Can you tell everyone where they can find you?
RealityGaze.com. That's where you can find us. Reality Gaze Podcast on Instagram, Reality Gaze Pod on TikTok and Blue Sky. Also, if we are in the mix of Love is Blind, not Love is Blind, we are in the mix of Love Island.
Mhm.
The villa's gay this year because Poodle and I are talking about it. So be sure we do an episode that drops on Wednesdays on YouTube or on our main feed where you can listen to our weekly recap of just young slutty people.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Very different than what the stakes are so low on this show. I love it.
It is a refreshing place from the world sometimes.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much.